Lately, on a lot of my streams, I've been bringing up the topic of skill gap quite a lot. What exactly is it, why is it so important, and how does this apply to Titanfall 2? Let's take a look. In any game, be it a board game, video game, pen and paper game, whatever, there will tend to be groups of players that are able to outperform other groups of players in a statistically significant quantity. There is a gap between these players that, if left too large, can create problems within a given game. If left too small, that too will come with a host of problems. It's imperative that a flow state is reached in which a lesser player has access to tools allowing them to compete against their superiors without feeling helpless. At the same time, the better player should never feel like these tools reduce or remove their ability to play the game and compete. There's an expectation that things should feel fair. In Titanfall 1, there were a few items or mechanics available to players that would really help them out against better players. The Smart Pistol allowed for pure focus on wall running and mobility, while the gun did all the aiming for you. All that was required was a single click of the mouse to delete swaths of enemies in the blink of an eye. We had arc grenades, dealing high damage with a short fuse, capable of two-shotting pilots even if they are using stim. They simultaneously almost completely cleared shields off of Titans, killed minions in one shot, and blinded everyone affected by them. Extremely easy to use and extremely effective. Throwing an arc grenade was almost never the wrong decision in any situation. They were frighteningly effective. The arc cannon was one of the most forgiving instant kill weapons ever placed into a competitive FPS, while simultaneously being one of the best area of effect or crowd control weapons in the entire game. In all of these cases, these pieces of equipment significantly reduced the skill of difficult execution, positioning, game sense, and more. However, to counteract this, other parts of the game were exceptionally difficult. Bunny hopping and moving around the map quickly and consistently required a good deal of skill. You had a very short window of only a few frames at the base of each jump where you would properly maintain your momentum. If you jumped too soon, you'd double jump and significantly reduce your speed. If you were too slow, you'd skid on the ground and come to a screeching halt very, very quickly. But if you put in the time and effort and learned that perfect link, just like learning a one-frame link in Street Fighter, crossing the map extremely quickly was absolutely achievable. Every ounce of speed that you attained in that game, you had to work for. There was no cheat or workaround for high-effort gameplay. The point that I'm trying to make here is that while there were mechanics allowing the casual player to always remain competitive, there were also mechanics for the dedicated player to force themselves above the rest through brute force and practice alone. These easy-to-use items in Titanfall 1 lowered the skill floor, which isn't inherently a bad thing. The difficulty of bunny hopping, along with the loads of other mechanics that I'm not going to bore you with about Titanfall 1, happened to raise the skill ceiling. Also, neither necessarily good or bad. The skill ceiling in Titanfall 1 was insanely high, far past the point of achievement of even the best and most dedicated players out there. What was great about Titanfall 1 was not the fact that the skill ceiling was sky high. It was that pushing the floor and ceiling in those respective directions managed to create what's called a skill gap. There was a really nicely sized skill gap where the bottom and the top were at a certain, nondescript, non-numerical distance between each other. It's just kind of a feel thing. This idea of a skill gap allowed most players at all levels to have fun with the game, be it in a casual or competitive capacity. As a comparison, let's look at a game like Quake. In Quake, nothing is explained to you up front, and you are expected to go out of your way to learn every single hidden mechanic of the game, just to hopefully maybe get a single kill in a 1 versus 1 against an experienced player, if you got lucky. If you don't understand how map control works, it's nearly impossible for you to ever score a kill, as you'll be permanently outmatched. The skill floor is high, and the skill ceiling is also extremely high. The gap between the floor and the ceiling in this game is extreme, which creates a horrible feeling for all but the most hardcore of players. For this reason, Quake remains the quintessential competitive FPS of all time, but is one that nobody plays anymore because it's just plain not fun for most people. Everyone would rather play a game like CSGO or something like that now because that skill gap is not quite as big. It's still big, but it's a little bit more achievable, it's a little bit more fun, and that's the difference. So how does all this relate to Titanfall 2? Well, I'm happy you asked. In Titanfall 2, there exists a wide variety of mechanics similar to those in Titanfall 1, whose sole purpose is to drop that skill floor way down low. The goal is to increase accessibility to the game, and Respawn did succeed in that regard. They did nothing wrong here. Amped weapons is always available to all players whenever boosts are available, and makes guns kill in at least one fewer shot, many times even more of a reduction depending on range. Melee attacks occur much more quickly, lunging through space and time itself to connect with their marks. Arc grenades, gravity star, absurd hipfire accuracy, and high aim assist values all contribute to this as well. Suffice it to say that I feel the skill floor of Titanfall 2 has been driven down in a big way compared to the first iteration. And again, this isn't a problem, not at all. Accessibility is a good thing. Game devs know this, and they're correct for pursuing it if they want to actually sell their video game. Where the problem lies, in my opinion, is that the skill ceiling has also been brought crashing down, compressing the skill gap to the point that it's unreasonable to stand out from the crowd. Bunny hopping has been dumbed down, made extremely easy to perform, and extremely forgiving of mistakes. Eject strafing is effectively gone from the game unless you use stim. Grapple and stim, instead of providing you just a light boost of speed like I would imagine they should do, can instead, in one button press, catapult you across the map at speeds so great that hit registration itself breaks. It's so easy to be good at this game that there's nearly no room at all for an extremely good player to separate themselves from regular old good players. This compression of the skill gap means that there are few to no mechanical differences between many players anymore. When combined with high aim assist values, this game becomes purely about who positions perfectly and peeks the right corner at the right time to blast you with the G2, instead of being about who is a better overall player in a variety of situations. Titanfall is kind of all about that, presenting you with a multitude of different situations, be it versus AI, versus Titan, versus pilot, versus whatever, in which you need to be able to use a lot of different guns at a lot of different times and be effective, but with the way things have been compressed, it's more just who gets that better aim assist, who shoots first with their G2, and the amount of player skill necessary is just kind of drifting away. By leveling this playing field so much, it becomes a very frustrating experience for players to play the way they want to play because they feel the need to be a slave to the meta. It's important for game developers to, in general, keep tabs on the perception of the skill gap in their game and adjust it accordingly to keep it within a healthy range. There needs to be a solid perception of fun being possible in the game for players at all levels, and while the fun is at an all-time high for lower level players, it's been gone for the dedicated few for quite some time now. Respawn deserves praise for the absolute magic that they have done in making Titanfall 2 more accessible, appealing, and fun for the masses. They've really done some inspiring work here, to be sure. They're not a bad group of people. They've done a really, really bang-up job with this game, don't get me wrong. And furthermore, this skill gap compression is probably correct for Respawn. They are, after all, in the business of creating games that people love and then selling those games. Making something that's more marketable and fun is the no-brainer solution. Besides, the dedicated few die-hard players that are not in a happy place right now have already bought into this game. They've collectively played lifetimes worth of hours, they've brought their friends in, they've bought multiple copies for other people, they've put lots of dollars into this game. They've had incalculable amounts of entertainment with it. Now, this isn't to say that they don't matter, they absolutely do, but you can only expect to get so much value out of a meager $60 before enough is enough and it's time to move on. Maybe some of these complaints about the compression of the skill gap are unfounded. I'd love to know your guys' opinions on that down in the comment section down below, but it's my sincere hope that sometime soon, some of these long-standing problems that I feel the game has can be addressed in Titanfall. Maybe not necessarily in Titanfall 2, but I hope that this has been a learning experience for Respawn in making future games. It's okay to lower the skill floor, but you've got to position the skill ceiling appropriately to keep that gap healthy. In Titanfall 2's current state, it's a bit small, but maybe one day we'll see that approach something better. Thanks for watching, pilots, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.